Hi, I'm Marty Levinson. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine. Edward Scissorhands has nothing on me. Hi, I'm Marty Levinson. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine.
Hi, I'm Marty Levinson, and welcome to the Northtown News Magazine.
For the identity of the real Marty Levinson, please stay tuned for the Northtown News Magazine.
Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Back to that lemon light city, sweet Hope, Chicago. 224.
Hi, I'm Marty Levinson. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine show with the greatest cameraman around, Sonny Hirsch, and your host, Avi Myers.
Thank you, Marty. Avi Myers, Northtown Neighborhood News Magazine, a presentation of Sonny Hirsch and myself. You can check all of our shows for the last 8 years or so on the web. The address is right underneath. Community policing is still alive and well in the 24th District, which includes the 49th and 50th wards, with a smattering of the 40th and 48th, caps24.org. It is a pleasure to have somebody who has been on the air for it's been way too long since we've had him on again. Of course, considering his dangerous opponent in the last primary election, I don't blame him for, actually he was supposed to be here one time and couldn't make it, but we're talking about the commissioner of the 13th District of Cook County, Larry Suffredin. How you doing?
Hey, Abby, good to see you. I'm sorry I couldn't make it before, but I was unopposed, and I knew you had candidates who were in contested races who needed to come and talk to the vote.
Yeah, no, we had no shortage of candidates, that was for sure. It was a very interesting season. It was a good Jewish Chicago. You almost gave me a left-handed compliment for what I said about Jan. So.
Well, you were nicer than you've been. Let's
no,
stop
that's definitely true. But you know what? She does. I just want to say publicly.
Jan Schakowsky, in my mind, is probably one of the best members of Congress. She is attentive to her constituents and stands for principles that other people in Washington just don't.
Oh, she definitely has principles, no question. My problem with her has always been the political boss role, more so than the voting role.
Well, since I'm one of her lieutenants, I don't mind being.
But I do want to give credit where credit is due. She has stood strong for Israel, and the fact is also she has been a staunch supporter of Jewish causes within the area, including Rabbi Klein, whose banquet is just finished by the time we're talking.
Yeah.
And, I give her a lot of credit for standing up to Northwestern University against him. And by the way, just so you know, because this world is so polarized these days, it's not like I can say something in the middle and people are just going to try to take it as intelligent, whatever. It's like no matter what I say, somebody on the left or somebody on the right is going to want to slap me big. And I got a lot of heat from people on the right for saying nice things about Jan. And they were bringing up the whole J Street thing, but to Jan's credit, even though she was the largest benefactor of J Street 2 years ago, she didn't change any of her views as a result. She stayed with her views the way they were, and for that I give her credit.
Look, Jan is the Illinois delegation, the one member who is committed to getting a Democratic Congress, which I think is essential for the president and it's essential for the country. She has helped all of the members from Illinois who are in contested races and are going to be in difficult races. She's helping people around the state. I have a new law partner in that our firm merged with an Ohio firm, Michael Wager, who's in the only really contested race in Cleveland, and Jan did an event at our law firm for him.
Oh, very nice.
And she is went to his home in Cleveland. He's the chairman of the Cuyahoga Port Authority, which is the Port of Cleveland.
I am going to be in Cuyahoga County next week, by the way.
Well, and he was Sherrod Brown's finance chair.
Yeah.
He's a lawyer in Cleveland. And Jan his race is one of the top 5 that Steve Israel has identified for the DCCC. And Jan is in every one of those races helping those people because she knows that's the only way we're going to get control of the Congress.
By the way, that's true. You've got to take it over.
And so she's a remarkable person. Her travel schedule, I couldn't, and she's a little bit older than I am. Sorry, Jan. But she is traveling every week and is just out there protecting the rights and the values that we want. So I was happy that you were able to say some nice things about her. You know, her opponent in this coming election is a Republican woman who is just off the wall, believes that we had too much snow because of Democrats, believes that it was too cold because of Democrats. I'm not. You know, she ran against Jan 2 years ago, and she campaigned by harassing people at grocery stores as they were checking out. So Jan has an opponent that I think the people will see through, and that'll give her more time to help us try to get a Democratic Congress. And so, you know, we're very fortunate that she's our Congresswoman. But you wanted to talk about some of these local elections we just went through.
Well, we can talk about that if you like. Yeah. Sure. What election? You got anything in particular you'd like to?
Well, I was intrigued by the judges' races. Well, first of all, the turnout, you know, was so low. And this really bothers me. It bothers me as an elected official, but it also bothers me as a veteran. You know, we take young kids and we send them, and I was once one of those young kids, we send them off to fight for democracy. And we have had for the last 12 years kids going to Afghanistan and Iraq, where their turnouts for elections are far greater than our turnouts. And it really bothers me that we have so many people that take their rights for granted here. And I think in this last election, Evanston had a 16% turnout, and that was the high for the general area. I think that the city wards were closer to 12%.
Right.
And then for the important offices of judge, you know, 1/3 of the government and the separation of government is our judicial officers. The turnout was 8%. And we had some really phenomenal qualified people running for judge. You had so many of them on the show. And, you know, they're putting their heart and soul and getting their qualifications out there and didn't make it. And we had some really good people who won. And one of the interesting things to me in our 9th sub-circuit, the local judge races, is that our voters went with 3 women, 3 strong women, 3 women who have done good things in their law practices and were found qualified and highly qualified by the bar associations. But they each ran very different kinds of campaigns.
Right.
You know, Anjana Hansen, who kind of became a clear-cut winner early on because her 2 opponents were just underfunded and didn't have a base, just ran an exceptional campaign all over the district. I gave her one bit of advice was to tell people her in-laws owned the fish keg on Howard Street. She told me every place she mentioned that, people had memories of going to the fish keg.
Yeah, by the way, also the fact of the matter is that when the political advisors early on in the judicial races figured that the main brunt of support from Jan and company was going to be for Anjana Hansen, and they were warning everybody else not to run against her.
Right. And that caused, in the race that Abby Fishman-Romanek won in, it caused 4 guys to run.
Yeah, 4 guys.
With her being the only woman, and you know, she did well on her 3rd try, and she ran a good campaign. It was a smart campaign, and the way she did it. The 4 guys, Brian Alexander, who I was for, were just an exceptionally good community-based lawyer. Tom Cushing, who was found highly qualified by a number of the bar associations.
Right, he had the 2nd or 3rd highest marks of any judge running.
Judge Mike Otto, who was appointed by the court, and again had really good bar.
And he's also on the short list for associate.
He's on the short list for associate, and that process is going on now. Hopefully he will make it. Yeah. And then Michael Strom, who's from Rogers Park and had been president of Decalogue, and again,
and by the
highly
way,
qualified
had
by a
the
number of people.
highest bar ratings of any candidate, whether it was for associate, not associate, whether it was for appellate, circuit, or sub-circuit. He had the highest bar ratings of anybody on the ballot.
Right, so he did extremely well. And then in the 3rd race, Judge Jerry Esrick, who had been appointed by the Supreme Court, a very well-qualified candidate, lost to Megan Goldish, who was an assistant state's attorney and a supervisor out of 26th Street, and again, an accomplished lawyer. But people went with the woman. There was a 3rd person in that race. I can't even remember his
Myers
name.
was his name.
Right, yeah.
And as people talk, he's a very strange person from what I understand.
Well, he'd run for alderman against Joe Moore once.
And committeeman.
And committeeman. I mean, he's bounced around in his law office.
People keep telling me he
Clark
rents
Street,
out part of his property for a porn shop.
Well, I don't know anything about that. But again, our voters went with the women candidates, and when you look at the judicial races, all of the countywide races in our area, the women candidates were there.
I think
and
something
I think
like 12 or 14
Yeah.
of the contested races. But you know, in the Megan, see, I really followed this one closely. In the Megan Goldish, Jerry Essrig races, the interesting thing to me was this was one of the few times where the city trumped the suburbs. It used to be that way, but usually Evanston rules. Evanston in the associated area rules. But you know what? There's a whole different philosophy for running for judge than there is for running for other offices, and especially within the candidate themselves. You've got a guy like Essrig, really, who is a superb individual with the highest qualifications, highly qualified at Chicago Bar Association, other places. And I think I compared him to a 52 or 53 carat gem in the paper. I have nothing but great. He's got some terrific judges who think the world of him. You know, absolutely. He has the judicial temperament. But you know what? Unfortunately, when this is an election, that doesn't necessarily lend him. It put him in the best place. Megan Goldish, who came from a different part of life, who's a state's attorney, and is a highly thought of state's attorney by the police and other people who got her. I was surprised. She had 3 different highly qualifieds herself, including from the Chicago Bar Association. She ran more. She hired a campaign manager in Shawn Turner, who also handled Joe Moore, a number of other races, used to be with Granger Thierry, who really attacks things like it's a regular election. And one of the things that was told me after the election that I thought was interesting is that Essrig never reached out to the individual alderman committeemen in the city of Chicago. And if he had, he might have garnered some of their support. Whereas opposed to Tanner, Tanner probably more so, for Goldish, reached out to all the different aldermen and committeemen in Chicago.
Well, I think that the Goldish race is a sea change because, as you said, it's the first time that the person who carried Evanston and carried the suburbs didn't win in the sub-circuit. And Megan's victory was caused by a good Chicago turnout and a significant ratio of votes. Now, it wasn't good in terms of overall. It was good in terms of those who came out to vote for Megan Goldish. So I think
she also spent an awful lot of money.
Well, she did, but she spent it smartly.
Very smartly.
And I think Jerry was competitive in that. But I think that what's happened is people will study Megan Goldish's race because I think her path to victory will become the new path to victory for future candidates in our sub-circuit.
That could be, but I'll tell you something. I have to give Shawn Turner a lot of credit. He knows how to be a good campaign manager. He may be the campaign manager
for future candidates in our sub-circuit because I think he established a group of people that did a lot of work, and he hired a number of quality people. He had Martha Burns and Lionel Jean-Baptiste, the judge's son, working in Evanston. So
yeah, he hired people in this area also. He hired Majid Mustafa, if you remember him, to help out in that community. And
so and they did I think they did a mailer or a pass-out piece that was done in Hebrew. Which
part of it was done in Hebrew, which actually was the lifted from the Jewish Chicago ad, which I put together.
The ad that was in your paper, and so I think that what we saw is one that women candidates continue to do very well, and secondly, that the types of campaigns that people will run will be very, very different. We had one local woman who didn't win, who I wasn't running for judge, but she was running for the Water Reclamation District, Josina Merida, who was from Skokie.
Oh, Skokie, I had her on the show.
Yeah, and she's a remarkable person. She was slated by the Cook County Central Committee. She was slated with Frank Avila, who is a current commissioner.
Right.
She was slated with Tim Bradford, who's from Rich Township in the far south suburbs, and herself from Skokie. Lou Lang did a phenomenal amount of effort to get her slated. She ran a perfect campaign. The Tribune, anybody who endorsed the Daily Herald, they all talked about her exceptional qualifications. But she was fourth on the ballot,
and
she came in. She came in fourth.
It went 1, 2, 3.
Exactly, And there
By the
were
way,
10
interestingly enough,
people in that race.
The Tribune went for that ticket of Avila Bradford and Marita, and Bradford, I found out the other day, never submitted a statement of candidacy or a written statement to the Tribune, and they endorsed him anyway, which I found interesting.
Well, I think what had happened is there was some confusion about getting it to him, but I think he did an oral interview with the Tribune. I don't think that they just endorsed him. I don't see the Tribune endorsing candidates of the party, but I think that what happened is there was somehow he was using snail mail rather than email, and as I understand it, he did do an interview, and at least when I talked with him, he said he had talked with the Tribune, because in their endorsement, you could see that they said specific things about what he wanted to accomplish in the job.
But yeah, you're right. The 1, 2, 3 thing, that's bothersome, because you've got 10 people on the ballot, and the top 3 aren't necessarily the best 3.
Well, and it's very different than over the years. We've had a number of independent women candidates who were quality candidates who had the first ballot position but didn't win. There was a woman named Sochi Flores who ran for water reclamation 2 years before Deborah Shore did, and she had the first ballot position. She had excellent credentials, but she didn't win. And the last time there was a woman with extremely good experience, and I'm blanking on her name, and I know her so well, who had the first ballot position, and just it didn't work.
You're not talking about the tax lady.
Yes. Yeah.
Black?
Yes, Stella Black.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Stella Black. I mean, I know her daughter and her son-in-law, but Stella ran a good campaign, but she was in the first ballot position, and it didn't work. This time, Cynthia Santos, who's an incumbent, who wasn't slated by the party, for the second time she was dumped by the party. She got the first ballot position. She ran, I think, a smart campaign.
Yep.
But again, unfortunately for Josina had been in the first position, or if the slate had been the first position, I think Josina would have won.
That very well could have been.
I'm really hopeful that she will continue to be involved. She's on the Environmental Commission for the village of Skokie, and she is just a very, very talented young woman. And one of the things that was just inspiring to me is her entire family came in the week before the election. Her mom, her dad, her sisters, they were everywhere campaigning for her. The other thing she told me is I think she had 4 or 5 oil changes in her car because of all the miles she drove all around Cook County.
Yeah. You know what? I want to. These are the races I really want to talk about, and if you've got one more, you can mention one more. But I did want to get to some neighborhood events as well as Cook County a little bit.
Yeah. Well, let me just mention 2 other events.
Please.
We had 3 appellate court races, and one of them was on the candidate was unopposed, but in 2 of them, John Simon and Sheldon Harris won the races.
Those were the 2 exceptions with the men.
Exactly. Sheldon Harris beat 2 women.
Fredrina Lyle and Susan Kennedy Sullivan.
Right, and from what I gather, he spent in excess of $800,000 of his own money to be on broadcast television.
Actually, he had $800,000, spent $500,000. He's still got $300,000 left in the campaign.
Oh, okay,
fund.
you know more than I do. And John Simon.
Once in a while, not too often.
Yeah,
he knows his stuff.
John Simon ran against a woman, and he put $600,000 of his own money into the campaign. 10
really?
days
That much?
out. Yeah, to buy broadcast television, and both of them.
He wouldn't even come on the show.
Well,
he ignored me completely when I invited him on the show.
Well, one of the problems that John had, he had eye surgery during the campaign, so his ability to get out and go places, he couldn't drive, and was always wearing shades, and I think he probably was super conscious of that for being on TV.
Well, we would have explained he wasn't here to sell us drugs.
He's a remarkable.
He's
of
got
all the people.
Extremely high marks. Also,
I've known him for years.
Ratings.
Seymour Simon's son, his
stepson actually.
Stepson, but he was
Who
adopted.
was a Supreme Court justice himself, as well as the chairman of
He was adopted by Seymour. He was Seymour's son, and Seymour was on the appellate court. Maybe John will get to the Supreme Court before this is over. One of the really exceptional people. So those races, again, were a sea change because of the amount of money put in by the candidates, which will make it more difficult. Now, the third spot, the unopposed spot, was Dave Ellis, who's an exceptional lawyer, who'd been Speaker Madigan's lawyer,
Right.
and is a novelist. He has a number of books out.
Yeah, everybody knew he's Madigan's guy. Better not run against him.
So those were the races. Now you want to talk about some things going on in the community. We ought to talk about the Jewish Folk Art Festivals, because that's going to happen
that's
after
the main thing I
this
want to talk
plays.
about.
Yeah.
Right. And by the way, one thing I will say, because I do get involved with it every year, and have been since the very second festival. I wasn't around for the first. I had a booth for Jewish Chicago. I actually took in over $2,500 in magazine sales, and that was on the Evanston Lakefront, is where they had it at that time. Now, as I've said in the past, and it's probably going to be true again this year, no elected official does more to help them than you, including all the Jewish ones.
Well, it is a great community event, and it's in St. Paul Woods, which is in Morton Grove. Mike Lorge, who's now the Corporation Counsel of the Village of Skokie, is one of the real organizers of it.
And a member of the Suffredin Progressive.
Yeah, well, he is. He and I tried
Mike's
to help.
a great guy.
We tried to help Josina together. We tried to help Brian Alexander and Jerry Esrig. Unfortunately, it didn't work. We did help John Simon, and we did help Anjana Hansen in their races. But this is one. This is something that you need to go see. It's about 20,000 people who come on one Sunday.
Actually, it's
June
usually
8th.
more than 20,000.
It can be.
When it rains, it's 20 maybe.
Yeah, it's June 8th, right off
Sunday,
of
June 8th.
Right off of Dempster. There's parking off of Oakton. The Forest Preserve is right near the Metro tracks. So you can take the Metro train and get off at the Morton Grove stop. But there are artisans from all over the Midwest who have phenomenal art. There's phenomenal music and all into the Jewish culture.
Right.
I mean, and kosher food like you cannot believe.
And actually, this year, I already checked the website. They've expanded beyond belief. And there's going to be a sushi place there.
Yes.
Kosher sushi place. So, I just hope the sun doesn't overcook the fish.
Well, I think we know how to use ice.
So no, definitely. And but there are going to be more vendors than ever from a kosher standpoint, which I think is terrific. Also, one of the main events, one of the main acts, because there's actually 3 stages going on simultaneously
Right, with
music.
music and
there's also a folk stage. Not to mention there'll be different vendors, like the bookstores sometimes show up there and all the rest of it.
It's unbelievable. It is
But I
for
want to mention
kids,
Peter
for
Himmelman,
children.
because Peter
this
Himmelman is really like a top-notch
wow.
performer, and he was actually the featured act there probably about 10 years ago. We interviewed him at the time, and I mean, this guy's really got a head on his shoulders. He was actually, at times during his performance, he was actually making up folk songs based on the interactions of the people in the first few rows of the audience.
Yeah, and it's
and
just,
all the food is kosher.
yeah. Well,
And I give Mike a lot
and
of
all
credit
the
for
food
that.
is good. It's very, very good. So I'd encourage you to come out, and it's a chance to get into our Cook County Forest Preserve system. St. Paul Woods is where we do a lot of big events. It's a wonderful, wonderful preserve area, as are all of the forest preserves that we have on the North Branch of the Forest Preserve, running from basically Morton Grove up to the Botanic Garden.
There are also usually over 100 different Jewish organizations, and I mean of all kinds. I mean, you could actually, at one point, J Street was sitting right around the corner from the furthest right Piak, Israel Piak, and they weren't even trying to kill each other too much. So, no, but everything's peaceful. You're going to find all different religious things, all different kind of secular political things, even things like, Holocaust types. From the Holocaust, museum and stuff like that. There is virtually nothing going on in Jewish life that you won't find at that fest.
Exactly. And if you ride your bike there, after you've attended the fest, ride your bike up to the Botanic Garden, which is still the best thing in my district in terms of what we have with government. Last year, the Botanic Garden, for the first time, had more than 1 million visitors. It is free every day to get to the Botanic Garden. You do have to pay for parking if you drive up there, but if you can walk up there, if you can ride a bicycle up there, do it. It is the best botanical garden in North America, and maybe now in the world. What they've done with land that was really surplus land. I mean, Seymour Simon was responsible as president of the county board and Forest Preserve District to give that land to the Chicago Botanical Garden. And when you see how they've reclaimed it, the various gardens, 375 acres of land. You know, you need to take the tram and go around and see them. Japanese gardens, English gardens, Irish gardens. The flowers, the variety of flowers is unbelievable. The number of programs for children. You know, they're right now looking to hire high school and college kids for the summer, and I would encourage people to go to their website. It is not hard from our district to get there. If you get on the main North Branch line of Metra, you get off at Brayside right there by this. There's a shuttle bus that'll take you to the garden.
Cool.
Or you can walk to the garden. There's buses that go down Ridge and Green Bay Road that take you right there with Pace. I mean, it is the best thing that we have going. And it is one of the most peaceful. It's a spiritual place when you see the flowers. So I'd encourage you to do that. Did you have another community event you wanted to talk about?
Well, actually, it's already over, but I was going to mention Rabbi Klein's banquet.
Well, and Rabbi Klein, by the way, is on the Northwestern University. He's also one of the police chaplains for the Evanston Police Department. He is a presence.
Well, actually, he's on Northwestern. He's in the Northwestern area. He's having a dispute with the university.
Well,
at present.
you know,
which is one of the reasons I gave Jan Schakowsky credit for standing up for him.
You know, it is difficult to provide spiritual guidance to students and to universities that are very diverse, and I think Rabbi Klein has done a phenomenal job in Northwestern. And he's done a phenomenal job in Evanston. He's a great man of peace in his role as police chaplain. I've seen him in very difficult situations dealing with families, and his banquet will be over. He's honoring the Evanston police chief, who Chief Eddington is really one of these people who, like your current commander in the 24th District, he understands policing and he understands development of community and how police officers can be an essential part of the community without being somebody that the community rails against or is afraid of.
Yeah, I've heard very good things. I don't know if you know Dane Ronvik at all.
I don't.
Dane Ronvik is the beat facilitator along with Bernard Garbo in 2424, which isn't a song title, but that's actually the beat number. And they have excellent
Well, not that kind of beat.
No. But no, he has talked about, they do a lot of things jointly with Evanston across Howard. And they both have talked a lot about the wonderful cooperation they get from the Evanston Police Department.
Well, you know, one of the most impressive things to see is when they do the joint roll call between the 24th District and the Evanston Police Department on Howard Street. And someday you ought to do a show on that.
We actually have filmed it and have done, on at least 2 different occasions we've shown that.
It is impressive in terms of how the two communities come together. I always like to say that Howard Street is not a mountain, okay? It's a street. And though we did at one point have a stone wall, thanks to Alderman Bernie Stone, it did come down. And you know, the activities on either side of Howard Street, the Chicago side or the Evanston side, are the same people. And you know, I know that the shopping center that has the largest kosher jewel, I think, in their system.
Actually, it's not just the largest kosher jewel, it's one of the largest supermarkets, period, anywhere outside of New York and New Jersey.
That's great. And the Target that's there, or Target, depending upon how.
Target, yes. That's where I purchased my illicit drugs.
And the activity that are on both sides of Howard Street going all the way down. We've just opened a new restaurant on Howard near
California.
California.
Hamachi Sushi Bar. Yeah, kosher sushi.
Yeah.
So, well, you know, technically lots can be considered, hearing could be considered, but we got about 20 seconds left, so why don't you give us your contact information?
Well, please come to my office at 820 Davis in Evanston. Karen Chavers runs my office there.
Terrific
Our
lady.
phone number is 847-864-1209. And if there's anything we can do to help you with property taxes or other county services, health care, please come. Thank you. Thanks, Avi.
I want to thank you very much, Larry. Thank you very much, Sonny, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.